afternoon. My name is Nicole Schmidt, and I'm a distance education student for the CE 501 class. Today I'll be discussing with you incentivizing critical project outcomes. Here's a general overview of what I'm going to discuss. First, we're going to look at what is the goal, and then we're going to talk about different incentive programs for the project and then the people. And at the end, we'll wrap up with the conclusion and take any questions. So, what is the goal? When we're thinking about projects, we have to consider the goal of not only the project itself, but the owner and then the company and what their goal is as well. So that means it can vary to all extenses. First, one of the main ones we'll talk about is completing the project ahead of schedule. There's also the goal of coming in on budget. And sometimes just finishing the project can be a goal for the project team. Another one is gaining the trust of that owner, whether it's new or old. And then ideally we want future work after the fact when we're done. So once you look at the goal for your project, you want to look at incentives and how they're incorporated into that project. For instance, projects, you may look at the contract. Is there a monetary value associated with it and future work? For people, the people on the project or in the company, we'll look at developing that employee to become a better person and better worker for the company. We'll also want to engage them more with the company and the project, and then have them take ownership of that actual project, their task, and what they're doing. And it also increases the self-worth of that person. So, talking firstly about incentivizing projects. Whether it's a critical project or a regular project, we're going to look at the contract first. Contracts are primarily driven by cost and schedule. And here are 7 examples of different contracts I found in my research. The first one being incentivizing or disincentivizing for early or late completion. This is providing a monetary value of some sort to the contractor if they complete the project ahead of time, or the contractor paying the owner if it's late. Another way is looking at the best value for the contract. Not only looking at the cost at bid time, but looking at the calendar days that subcontractor has scheduled for that project and multiplying it by the owner's actual cost per day and taking that into play together to give you your best value. That means not necessarily the low guy will win the project because he may be low in cost but high in calendar days, and when you multiply that by the owner's values that he would associate with the days per cost per day, that would be different. There also is a lane rental contract, and that takes into consideration mostly heavy civil projects, and the important part there is the owner doesn't want to close down that street or highway for a duration of a long period of time. And so applying a lane rental rate allows that company to try to minimize their lane rental costs and either work at night or provide a detour for pedestrians and drivers, etc. There's a no excuse incentive. This means there's primarily a contracted date where there's a firm date we have to meet. For instance, the opening day for baseball. Liquidated damages may occur here. There's interim completion date contracts, which is more for phased projects, and that is making sure that the contractor meets those interim dates because those are important to the owner as well. Then there's liquidated savings, which are the same as liquidated damages, but the contractor is getting money instead of giving out money. And then we have accelerated construction techniques, which looks at more like lean construction and using precast systems instead of cast-in-place concrete, or developing all the mechanical systems and doing a lot of prefabrication in shop and then bringing them out to the job site, which in the end shortens the construction schedule. And then there's design build, which we've talked about before. When you're looking at projects, as I mentioned, there's incentives and disincentives. Some examples of incentives are a bonus. Does the contractor get a fee, a percentage, at the end of the day if they complete early, or is it a rate per day? There's a no excuse bonus, so they're locked into incentives as I discussed earlier. You can also provide incentives to the subcontractors for safety and quality. For instance, on the project I'm working on right now, we provide a safety subcontractor of the month, and that subcontractor receives pizza one Friday for all of their crew. Some disincentives may be liquidated damage clauses in the contract. However, the research article I looked at mentioned that it was largely ineffective in that case. You can also be paying the extra amount for the owner's costs that they incur for every day longer that the project goes on. And then there may be fines associated with government projects or different types depending on what you're working with. So once you've looked at the project and the incentives there, we have to look at the people, because ultimately the people are going to be building our projects for us. Every company looks at their people as a return on their investment. They're paying that person to do work for them. And with the new generation coming up, a lot of younger generation, it's found in the research that they are intrigued by more money or different incentives for them. Incentivizing people has also proved to drive desired outcomes. So the goals that we've set, if you provide incentives for your people, they will provide that outcome easier or maybe well in advance of what you anticipated originally. And it also helps avoid unintended consequences which may occur prior to, and which we want to avoid at all costs. One thing to note at the bottom is that rewards will change the attitude taken for that person with the activity they're given. And it may change the way they perform it. And so we also want to discuss that in our discussions with that person when we're going over their incentives. So here's a quick flow chart that I found when I was doing some research, and it's basically a simple when to use rewards flow chart. I'm not going to go over it because you can read it here on the screen or you can read it in the printout. But it's kind of a good way to analyze of when you should provide incentives for people. Then, as we're talking about creative incentives for people, your company may want to create an incentive program. And here are some steps to create a successful one. First, you want to look at the specifics to their duties, their actions, and their intended results for that person as well as the company. We want to make sure that the goals are measurable to provide fairness. Fairness doesn't necessarily mean equal for all people. It's fair. Then they must be achievable for the employee. So don't give someone a goal that you know they definitely won't get to, because that's not incentivizing them. That can actually act as a disincentive to them. We want to make sure the goals are result-oriented and that they are tracking the progress, whether that's meeting with the person one-on-one, gathering feedback from their superiors or the people that work under them or over them, and also tracking the results with, did they meet the deadline they're supposed to meet? The employee also must be involved and take ownership of that and accept the goals and incentives that are at hand. And then also we want to reward people for the future as well as the present. So in conclusion, I know this is really brief and short, but incentivizing people and projects plays a key role in the end result goal. I know with my experience in Kansas City originally that we've had several projects where the owner has said, if you complete a month early, we will provide you a half% of your fee as a bonus. And in some cases, that can equate to a lot of money. And so that works our people to say, hey, that's good for our company. And if our company is doing well, that means I'm doing well, and that I still, in this economy, have a job, or that I can prove myself that I've done very good on this project and move to the next level. With the main thing we have to look at, though, with any project is the owner's goals and have the team buy in. So no matter what incentives they are, the primary goal is to please the owner and get future work. Another one is to develop the team goals for the project. Once we have the owner goals, the team needs to meet together and have complete buy-in for that project. Then the incentives are developed either at a company level or at the office level or within the team. We also review the contract to make sure there are incentives there, and then develop an incentive program for employees as well. With that, I will take any questions, and I appreciate you listening in to my presentation here in Denver, Colorado, and I look forward to questions on the Blackboard. Thank you.